And yet now he does this in such a wise and clever way. You know, he says, go and call your husband. And she says, I don't have a husband. He says, yeah, yes, you're right when you say that, because the man that you're living with now, the man you have now, is not your husband. And so what he's doing is he's putting his finger on her sin. Right? Now he says you had 5 husbands previously. Now, it is possible that she was legitimately married 5 times and each time was widowed. You know, that's one possibility. As far as I'm aware, there are only 2 conditions in the Bible which divorce is permitted, divorce and remarriage. One is the death of one of those husband or wife, and the other is fornication in Matthew 5:32. As far as I can see and understand it, they're the only 2 conditions that I can see in which that is allowed. But today in our society, the morality of people today is quite different to the morality of Jesus, isn't it? So when Jesus says, yeah, the man you have at the moment isn't your husband, the people of our generation, of our society, say, that's right, he or she is my partner. And that's quite acceptable, isn't it, in our society? Quite acceptable. And but for Christians, that's not acceptable. You know, I'm amazed when you see, and I've seen it with my eldest daughter when she went through school, our other children, of course, being home educated, that you see, you know, oh, Miss So-and-so came in today, she's been off on maternity leave and she's brought her new baby with her to show all the children, and, you know, she's not married. You know, there was a time when teachers were supposed to set a moral example before children, and here she is, she's coming in to show this baby off. She's not married. This is a baby that she's had with a man that she happens to live with. According to the Bible, she's a fornicator. You know, that her actions are deliberately challenging the laws of God. They're deliberately challenging well, she's doing it in ignorance, but that's what they're doing. You're teaching your children. That woman is teaching the children in her class, this is acceptable, this is all right. This is something you learn when you're home educating, isn't it? Your children are learning all the time. They're learning by your example. So that when you have, you know, a row with your wife or something, you can almost forget that the children are there, you know, because they're quiet, they're doing their own thing, and you forget their children are around. They're taking it all in, they're learning. We've got to be really careful what we do in front of children. And I remember there was a time, and I'm not saying all teachers are like that, but there was a time when teachers were very careful what they allowed children to see and how they allowed themselves to be perceived, because they were aware of that there was a moral code of conduct that they wanted to teach the children. And I remember being a young lad, being at junior school, and my parents' house, the garden, if you can imagine this, it's like a long garden. At the bottom there was a house that backed onto it, and the house was owned by one of the teachers at school. And me and some friends were just down the bottom of the garden, and we were sort of peering through the fence trying to see if we could see this teacher in there, and she was entertaining some friends in there. And we were looking through the fence, and someone said, there's Mr. Risebrow. And so we all kind of looked at Mr. Risebrow. I was one of the teachers at our school, so we're looking through the fence and we could see him. And then someone went, oh, he's smoking! And this was in the 70s, and lots of men smoked. It was no big deal for people then. But we were absolutely shocked, mortified, because he'd never smoked in front of us. He never smoked as he was leaving the school or entering the school. He'd obviously kept this back, kept it hidden, because he thought it was a bad example to show before the children. So he never saw him with a cigarette in his hand. But here he was in the privacy, or what he thought was the privacy of this woman's living room, just having a cigarette, you know. And yet it's so different now. You know, my eldest daughter, we went to pick her up from her prom night, whatever that's for, but anyway, we went to pick her up from the prom night, and outside this place where it was being held, there was young female teachers, you know, dressed like they're going clubbing or something. You know, a cigarette in one hand, vodka and orange in the other, you know, and children coming up and talking to them, you know, albeit teenagers, but it's wrong, you know. What happened to setting a moral example before people? You know, The morality of the Bible is totally different to the morality of this world. What is acceptable in this world is not acceptable to God. It's not acceptable to go and live with a person and have a child with them. It might be acceptable in your society, but God says that is fornication. That is a sin. And we must be careful as Christians that we don't adopt the same standards of the world.